Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul.
My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Hey everyone, it's Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am joined by the delightful Stuart Perrin. So he's an American spiritual teacher of Rudra Meditation, and he has been teaching around the world for over 40 years. In his early 20s, in the search of a spiritual teacher, he spent time in Europe and North Africa. When he met Swami Rudrananda, the trajectory of his life changed. Rudi showed him a meditation technique that developed the chakra system and made the esoteric into something practical. Stuart now teaches Rudra Meditation in the US and internationally on Zoom, and he holds bi-monthly retreats. He has written and published many books about meditation and spiritual practice, including Rudra Meditation, Transforming Life's Tension into Joy and Love, A Lotus Flower in Muddy Waters, Navigating the River of Time, Moving On, Finding Happiness in a Changed World, and Leah, A Story of Meditation and Healing. So a big welcome to the show, Stuart, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a joy to do this, and I think we're going to have a good time. We're going to have
I
a really
feel
good
that
discussion.
too. And I love that you are sharing a practice of meditation. I love that you're sharing a form of meditation through the Rudra meditation that encompasses the chakra system, because so often people think they have to be separate, but really they can easily work together.
Well, they do work together, Catherine. They really do. Look, when I was a young man, I went through some very traumatic experiences, and I was looking for something that would enable me to connect with a higher energy in the universe, but to live a practical life. To be able, yeah, I realized even as a young man, I realized we have karma. We weren't born on the earth for nothing. We have a purpose for living here. And we have to learn how to connect with spirit and how to use that connection and that energy and that Shakti that flows into a human being practically in the world. And as I spent 9 years looking for a teacher when I was younger, and I would hear love, peace, and eat vegetables, and I would hear chant mantras, and I would hear all this kind of stuff. And I would say to teachers, how do I get my mind to shut up? How do I get my emotions to get quiet? How do I master the intense sexual energy I feel all the time? How do I learn to stop the local insane asylum from driving me crazy? And the insane asylum was me. And I never got an answer. Well, you have to chant, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I spent, a long time looking for somebody who could connect me with spirit and enable me to function consciously in the world. And I didn't know I read about chakras. I really didn't understand them. It was a very esoteric term when I was younger. And when I discovered that in order to do what I'm looking for, I have to develop a system of energy centers inside myself called chakras. And my teacher, Rudi, told me, Stuart, they're just psychic muscles. And if you don't develop them and work them, it's like physical muscles. If you don't go to the gym, if you don't work out, if you don't exercise, they atrophy. The chakra system in most people have atrophied. And then they are left with what? Tension. The mind doesn't shut up. The emotions, it's like a swampland, and they have to deal with that tension because they have no ability or no knowledge about how to transform the tension into a spiritual life, or even forget about a spiritual life, learning how to function here like a human being. Because I learned early on, Catherine, people that have developed the highest levels of their humanity. And what do I mean by that? They live with love, They live with compassion. They live with joy. They have forgiveness for other people. They're not judging everybody in the world according to their idea of what's real and what's not real. People that live that way have developed the highest levels of their humanity. And a spiritual life is a snap. We have finally figured out why we were born on the earth, and we have truly mastered our karma by just learning to live with our hearts open, learning to live with love, joy. So I said to Rudi, I said, well, how do you do this? He sat me down and he showed me a breathing technique, and he pointed out something I didn't know. He said to me, Stuart, there is a root, a foundation inside you. There's a chakra right below the navel that's the very core of your being. That is the foundation. And that chakra needs to be developed. And he told me, he said, look, Stuart, you can't build a building without a foundation. You know, I mean, I remember I've talked about this a lot. I spent time in Cairo, and I went to the pyramids, you know, that are in the suburbs of Cairo. And you look at this pyramid and this extraordinary structure that looks like it was built by aliens. You know, it's so unbelievably powerful. But the foundation is huge, and it goes like this. And the third eye or the top is like the tiny one brick, but the foundation is huge. Spiritual energy is very powerful energy. You know, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna talks, reveals himself to Arjuna, it's as if the light of 1,000 suns suddenly manifests in the sky. It's energy beyond all human comprehension. In order to absorb that energy and to make it palpable to living every day, we need to build foundation. And this is the thing that's missing with almost every form of meditation. People would say, focus on the third eye. They would tell me, listen to your breathing. And I would try these things, and I was basically kind of spacing myself out. And when I began to learn how to bring my mind, the energy of mind, not the thinking process, but the energy of mind, to the chakra below the navel, I suddenly began to feel a power inside myself that I didn't even know existed. And it was like, it's like martial arts, you know? I mean, the people that study Aikido, karate, you know, all the kung fu, they're taught about chi. They're taught about the hara, the tatien inside them. That is the chakra I'm talking about. The power, the base, the lotus base that the Buddha sits on, which is the foundation of all the teachings. And that has to be developed inside. That gives you the strength to do three things. First of all, to connect with spirit, a light of 1,000 suns, totally incomprehensible energy, to bring it in, the Shakti, to bring it in to oneself. Secondly, to work out one's karma. You know, life is a very powerful energy. Life is an energy also beyond all human comprehension. People have been trying to figure it out for 1,000,000 years now. Nobody has, you know? So we need to be able to connect with spirit. We need to be able to live in the world. And the third element is the force of Kundalini. Kundalini is the pathway to enlightenment. And when the Kundalini is activated, it is a very powerful energy also. It's the energy in which the human transforms itself into the divine, into the spirit inside a human being. And the energy rises up the spine and connects with the soul of the universe. We need to be very strong inside to receive spiritual energy, to live in the world, and to be free of the world.
Yeah.
And when I met Rudi, he was the first teacher who ever showed me how to do this. And I was completely blind. So this is exactly what I am looking for, how to do this. And then my entire life began to change. My mind started getting quiet. My emotions started getting quiet. I was able to deal with and like transform my sexual energy into something positive, instead of making me crazy all the time. I mean, all of these energies began to change, and I began to live as a conscious human being in the world. But I needed to learn how to master the chaos. And the exercise that Rudi taught me how to master the chaos. And he told me, he said, Stuart, meditation is not a religion. It's not a cult. It's a craft. Meditation is something you have to learn. And by mastering the craft, you begin to build a system that connects you to spirit, work out your karma, and get your freedom.
I love how you explained that, Stuart. It was so perfect. But I also love that you talk about the chakras as like your spiritual muscles, because, and I was really guilty, I still am sometimes, where I'll disconnect from my lower chakras because I spend so much time up in the ethers. But and then it throws me off balance, and then I can't anchor anything into this realm because I'm too busy up the top. So like you said, you have to really build those foundations and make them really strong, because if you don't do that, then it's really hard for you to be connected in your human form. And we chose to incarnate as a human for a reason, to go through those human experiences. So we really need to learn those practices to allow ourselves to, like you said, quiet our minds and get stronger with our connection with that. And I love that you talked about it strengthens and gets stronger, because even, for example, for me, when I started channeling, I would have to set up the room and be in my space and drop in and close my eyes, and I had to record. And then one day I could leave my eyes open, and then I didn't even, and then one day it was just like, oh, I'm disconnected. Okay, I don't have to do that whole ritual anymore. But it was because you did all the groundwork to make those foundations, or I did the groundwork to make those foundations really strong, so I could connect really quickly. And I'm still doing stuff to keep making that connection even stronger. But I still am aware that I need to go out. Like yesterday, I spent the day barefoot walking on the ground to help anchor in my lower chakras, to help pull down my earth chakra, which is a whole other story. But, to help balance those out, because a lot of people underestimate how important our energy centers actually are.
Well, the lower chakras are the key to building a holistic chakra system. We need to be grounded. We need, I wrote a book called Navigating the River of Time. And in the book, I've said this in a lot of these podcasts, but in the book, I talk about a tree. If the tree has strong roots, healthy roots, a hurricane is not going to blow it down. People live in the world without the roots, without the foundation. Life itself becomes a hurricane that is completely uprooting their tree of life inside, the tree that exists inside them. The foundation, there's no foundation inside them. So life itself uproots them. And when you build that foundation, there's going to be positive, there's going to be negative, there's going to be things wrong, there's going to be things we like and don't like that drive us, but we have the strength to be able to not allow those things to throw us off balance, not to close our heart, not to get all crazy in the head with trying, angry and upset and, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to learn how to do this. This takes practice, it takes time, and it takes a lot of work. I mean, I studied with Rudi for 6 years, and I used to go to his classes all the time. He basically couldn't keep me away from him, because I had found a source, it was extraordinary. So he had an Asian art gallery, where I would go there all the time, and I would sit with him, and I would take the Shakti, and I would take the energy that I needed for my life. And, I understood how important it is to have a mentor, somebody who's willing to guide you, who's willing to get on the raft with you, go over the whitewater river and guide you, to a place where you find that peace inside yourself. And he was the person I was looking for when I started when I was 16 years old. And I needed to find somebody like that. So I think people have to, I would sit in Rudi's store, and clients would come in, And he would say, "Can I help you with something?" And generally the response was, "We're just looking. We're looking." And I mean, I couldn't believe it because I look at Rudi, all I saw was light coming out of him, energy, Shakti, healing, energy. And people were just looking and they're just looking and looking and looking. And one day, they go through enough, trauma and difficult experiences that, they have to find something that works. And it could take 100 incarnations until they find that thing, or they could find it. I mean, I found it, I thought, by accident. I had been living in Paris, I was living in Europe, and I was broke. I had no money. And I called a friend of mine in New York and I said, "Can you send me a plane ticket? I want to get back to the States. I need to get a job. I need to start working." And he sent me a plane ticket. I went back to the States. I was living on the floor of his apartment. I had nothing. I was 25 years old. And he said to me one evening, "Let's go out and have some dinner." I said, "Yeah, okay." So there was a Mideastern restaurant we really liked in Greenwich Village. We're walking on 7th Avenue South and we come to an Oriental art shop. And we're looking in the window and there are all these Buddhas and Tibetan Tonkas and paintings and, museum stuff. Most of it was very expensive. And my friend said, "Well, why don't we go in there and look?" So I said to him, "Charlie, I'm broke. What am I going to do in there?" He said, "You love this stuff." And I did. I really was very connected to Asian art when I was younger. And I said, went in the door, standing in the store, I saw this man, and like a magnet, I was attracted to him. And he started showing me pictures of himself studying with an Indian guru in India, Swami. And he said to me, "If you want to come study with me, come back here tomorrow at 5 o'clock." And I couldn't believe it, because it related to another experience I had, and that was when my father died. And I looked at this Rudi and I said, I'd never seen energy like that coming out of anybody. And the day my father died, I saw a serenity in him that was unbelievable. He was lying there in bed, totally serene. He had let go of everything in the world. And his nurse told me to her experience, just before people die, they undergo this state of total serenity. And when I looked at Rudi, I saw the same light coming out of him, except he was completely alive. I saw a vibrancy and an energy in him that I'd never seen before. So we left. We went back after we had dinner. We went back to this friend of mine's apartment, and we went and we met a guy on the stairwell who said, "Why don't you come into my apartment and have some tea with me?" And we said, "Okay, great." We went into his apartment. Catherine, he had about $500,000 Oriental art collection in this apartment. And he was living in a tenement. I'm talking bathtub in the $40 a month apartment, then bathtub in the kitchen, toilet in the hall, railroad flat, and the Buddhas and paintings. I said, "Where did you get all this stuff?" He said, "There's a guy in Greenwich Village named Rudi, who I met an hour before." And I said to myself, "Stuart, you've been making yourself crazy the last 9 years. The gods are talking to you. You have to listen." And I went down to see him the next day, and he showed me this exercise, which was exactly what I was looking for. How to connect with spirit, how to live in the world, how to activate Kundalini. And it was a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. I was ready. I finally had made myself nuts. I was so ready to find somebody to teach me this that he manifested. And then about a year later, I said to him, "Rudi, what happened that day?" He said, "Stuart, I saw you looking in the window of my gallery. And it was like seeing my son lost in the universe. And I just pulled you right in the door."
So beautiful. That is so beautiful. But I also love all the
And
synchronicities, right? Like, what were the chances that he was in? Well, it's all divine timing and planning sometimes, right? Like, you can't make it up, I like to say.
I walked past that gallery 500 times in New York. I never went in. A friend of mine told me about Rudi, and about 2 years before I met him, and I never went in there. And that day, I was ready. I needed to find some. There were no accidents. I was ready. I was pulled in the door, and it transformed my life, changed my life. Now, it didn't change my life on day one. It took years. I was studying with him for 6 years, learning what he had to teach me, learning what he had to teach me. And it was not easy. He was not an easy, he was tough. To bust my chops all the time.
It's worth it.
But I knew what he was teaching me, and I knew I needed that. I needed to learn what he had to teach.
I love that so much. And it is, when you're ready, it'll be there. And you might have been ready 2 years before, but maybe you weren't ready to receive the information yet. Like, it was already planted there, that seed, right? It just needed a little bit longer to ruminate and get ready to germinate and grow before it was aligned timing. I had a similar thing happen to me, Stuart, and I was talking to my homeopath, and she goes, "Oh, you should connect with this person." So she gives me her number, and I message her because I believe if someone says that, there's a reason, right? So, but we were texting and we couldn't figure out why we were meant to connect. So we just left it. Then a couple of weeks later, we were having someone help us with our solar system and that sort of thing. And we were talking, he goes, "Oh, you should connect with this person." It was the same person. I was like, this is getting beyond ridiculous now. Like, why am I meant to connect with this person? And still, we couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure out why we were meant to. We were just still laughing about it, going, I don't know. And then a few weeks later, I walk into this shop, this organic food store, and I was talking to the person working there. And she's like, "Oh, I'm working with this person on this project." And I said, "Oh, this same person?" And she said, "Yes. And she has this." And I went, "Thank you. I now know why we're meant to connect." So she had a Rife machine. I don't know if you know what a Rife machine is, but it's a frequency machine. And my husband was really unwell, and I was looking for someone to take him to work on it. But also I needed to go see her because she did other things other than Rife frequencies. So fast forward, my husband gets better, has this treatment that he really needed. I had a lot of patterns cleared, had a lot of things shifted so I could keep stepping into my spiritual journey. And then we finally figured out why we were connected. But it was not me, we weren't dismissing it because it was obviously a reason. But like you said, sometimes you're just not ready until, like you said, Rudi pulled you through the door. Or in my case, someone finally told me the piece of the puzzle that was missing.
Yeah, there are no accidents. We have to listen to life. It is constantly reminding us of the things that we have to do. People, it didn't mean anything. It's not true. Things happen for a reason, and we have to be able to listen.
And also be open, because I have so many clients and people in my life where they'll be like, "I keep asking for help." And I was like, did you then like stay open to seeing where the support was coming from? It might not look exactly how you think it's going to look. So I had someone and I kept bumping into her. In the space of a week, I bumped into her 4 times, and my guides were like, "She needs your help." So I said, "Hey, how's everything going? I'll send you a text," because we were like in random public places that we kept bumping into each other. And we started the conversation and I could just feel her energy go, "No, I'm not ready," and just pulled away. And I was like, when, you booked in with me, you canceled, you went to book in with me again, you canceled. There's clearly something that just needs you to get over that thing. But at the same time, I know that when she's ready, she's ready. So, this is, be open to that. What are the odds that I ran into her 3 times in the 1 week in completely different places? What were the odds of that? It wasn't a coincidence. It was the universe saying you are meant to be connecting. There's something that's meant to be happening between you two.
Well, I have lots of students and they come and it's, initially, they don't quite understand what is going on. But then if they stay with it over time, they begin to get it. And what they begin to see, I had it today with one of my classes today. I do Zoom classes. And one of the women, she stopped coming. So I wrote her an email and I asked her, what's going on? How are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I fell asleep in the meditation classes. So I said to her, but you're there to get energy. If you open to the energy, it'll revitalize you. So she came back to the class and she started, and today she looked just, extraordinary. She was just glowing today. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, she was, sitting there and half asleep. I said to her, listen, I said, if somebody screamed fire in your room, I said, you would find the adrenaline to run out of there very quickly. I said, if you need what is going on in the classes, you'll find the adrenaline to truly take in this energy. And this energy is going to transform you. It's going to fix you inside. And she did. And I saw her today. I said, my God, you look beautiful. You're glowing, you're glowing. And she's starting to get it. She's starting to truly not understand it, but to let the energy come in, let it nurture her and use it to overcome the tiredness instead of to let the tiredness overcome her, you know? And I usually think that when people have these obstructions, these blocks, they're always ready to make a major step in their life. There's on the other side of these blocks. There's always it's like the knight, slaying the dragon because there's a pot of gold on the damsel in distress. In old English, folk tales, and it's like that in life today. People come up against all of these blocks and they give up instead of understanding that if they get stronger inside, they will be able to overcome these blocks. And there's always a major kind of energy change on the other side. Something happens that takes them to a whole new level in their life. And the blocks are just resistance to changing, resistance to going to a whole new level in their life. And I see this so much in the work that I teach.
I love what you were sharing about you have adrenaline if there's a fire to stand up and run. And this is so often when we get stuck in that, oh, but I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted. But you can choose where you channel your energy and you can recalibrate and recharge quicker than what people think. You don't have to have a cup of coffee to recharge. You can call it in. And I've shown up today for multiple things. And I think I had maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep. And I'm like, no, I'm still happy. I'm still going because I'm choosing that I want to keep going. I know I will crash out this afternoon because I need to, but at the same time, you choose how you show up, right? And the more your energy systems and your chakras are in alignment, the more you work on that and balance yourself. You can go, I don't recommend it, but you can go with minimal sleep and you can go, without eating as much and things like that because you're channeling your energy from a different place.
I certainly agree. One can find any excuse for defeating themselves. Well, difficulty is learning how to take these energies and transform them into a positive force that works for you. Look, for me, it was meditation that did it, that really taught me how to take difficult situations. And when I was younger, I used to throw myself into impossible situations. And I would do it almost intentionally. Can I can I work my way out of this? They were usually like financial situations where I would wind up owing some huge sum of money to somebody. And can I grow enough in myself to be able to take care of this honestly? And these situations helped me have a spiritual life because I said, Stuart, where are you going to get the energy to do this? And the energy, I said, Stuart, there's only one place you can get the energy to do that, and that's inside yourself, connecting with spirit. And it not only taught me how to kind of live quietly and more calmly about myself, but it taught me how to function in the world and how not to allow the negative quantity of life to interfere with this kind of inner peace I was beginning to experience. And I've carried that through my life. And I think that's very important because I think we're all tested all the time by life. My teacher Rudi used to do things to me that would really force me to learn how to transform the impossible into the possible. I mean, I could tell you stories, about what he did, that are amazing.
I just had this image of him like hitting you over the back of the head with a stick. I don't know if he did that, but that's kind of the image they gave me. Like he was just trying to interfere.
There's a great story I told it a lot in podcasts because it's really wonderful. And he asked me to go to Texas to run a meditation center that he's started there. And I had lived in Paris, Rome, and London, and all over the world, Marrakesh. And he sent me to this kind of small town in Texas, and I really didn't want to be there. He said, go for 3 weeks. They're having a hard time, these people, and just help them get it together a little bit. 6 months later, he came down, and I said to him, Rudi, this has been a hell of a 3 weeks. He told me you're on your fourth day. And I said, it was an amazing teaching. I said, Stuart, this is how the earth was created. 7 days. And so 4 days, 3 weeks became 9 years that it took me to develop the strength to work out that situation and finally enable me to go back to New York and live in New York. But one of the things he also did, he asked me to start meditation centers in Texas. So I started, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them in Dallas, in Nacogdoches, in Austin, and in Denton, Texas, where I was living. And he came down there. I was teaching in all these centers, and I was teaching in prisons. I was teaching I was teaching a class in Kundalini yoga as an accredited course in a university in Dallas. I mean, and I was working 19 hours a day, plus running the ashram there and having to run a business because I needed to have money to support myself. So he came down, we're standing on the porch of this meditation center, and he looks at me and says, Stuart, you're not working hard enough. So I looked at him and I smiled. I said, Rudi, what do you want me to do? He said, buy that building. And the building was like a strip mall, it was a shopping center that was right next door to the meditation center. So I said, Rudi, I've got $600 in the bank. He said, anyone could do it with money. I mean, if I had $100 million in the bank, it'd be no problem. And I said to myself, Stuart, he's teaching you something. And what he was teaching me was something, one of the great fears I ever had when I was younger was money, financial success, and all of the nonsense and madness you had to go through to get it. And I said, Stuart, you have to learn how to do this and to make it part of your spiritual life, not to interfere with your, but as another force that makes your spiritual life grow. And I sat down in every meditation class. I went up to this higher force and I asked for the energy to learn how to do it. 1 month later, I bought the shopping center. 1 month later, they taught me how to do it. And I did it without robbing a bank, and
I like that you put that preface in.
We opened a restaurant there. It became such a successful situation. But the biggest success wasn't the money that was coming in. The biggest success is I began to overcome a fear in myself of success in the world. I used to write poetry. I wrote, I wanted to be an artist, a writer, and I needed to learn how to live in the world. And he taught me how to do it by asking me to buy that building. It was extraordinary. Extraordinary. It changed me because suddenly I began to realize, Stuart, money is just energy. That's all it is. And if you learn how to use it consciously, it'll do nothing but help you to develop yourself and your spiritual life and the people in your life and everything. And it was amazing. And it taught me how to live in the world and not be afraid of dealing with life and all the responsibilities that life imposes upon us. So I think this is something that people probably won't, but I learned this through meditation practice. I learned it through building a system, a chakra system that connected me to a higher force in the universe And when I needed answers to these almost impossible problems, they always came with answers. They came and they taught me exactly what I needed to do in order to succeed and make the thing work without driving myself crazy. So I think people need to learn this because money, it just sucks people dry. The greed, you can never make enough of it. And it really just sucks the energy and it destroys people's lives. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, if you learn how to use it in order to get to a higher force of energy in the universe. You know, so when I learned from, I mean, what he taught me was so many things, Catherine, about being in the world, about being free in the world, about learning how to transform, why we're born here, how to transform suffering into a spiritual life, difficulty into a spiritual life.
Yeah. Which it is amazing when you start to realize everything's energy, really. Everything is energy.
It is energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, even for me, I've been through the whole unpacking the energy of money because I had so many programs running. Like, you have to work hard to earn your money. It's like, no, I can actually attract it and pull it in and let it grow. I don't have to work hard if I invest it in the right places. I can let it grow, you know, so challenging and unpacking all those beliefs. And like you said, we're here for a reason, whatever whatever it is. And if you don't get the lesson this time, it'll just hang around until you do. And I've been one to go, you know, when I'm faced with the lesson, I will run into it head first because I'm like, I don't want to do it again. I want to learn from this. And exactly like how you said, Stuart, what's Rudi teaching me in this moment? You know, hang on, he's trying to teach us something. It's when we ask those deeper questions rather than blaming or trying to put out all the excuses and everything like that. And when we own our energy, that we can create those powerful shifts.
I agree. And I think that the great purpose of being born here, being incarnated on this plane of consciousness, is we need to learn how to transform suffering into an open heart. I think that is why we come here. You know, to nurture the soul, to transform the difficulties and suffering of life into joy, into love, into an open heart, into a connection with spirit. And I think it just transforms people when they suddenly begin to learn how to do this. They're no longer complaining about life. They're using whatever they learn. I mean, I remember when Rudi told me, he said to me, Stuart, if anyone ever asks you who the guru is, tell them the guru is life. And I said, it was such an important lesson for me because I learned through teaching lots of people meditation. I am not the guru. I am not the guru. I tell people this all the time. I am just a person who is here to teach you how to build a connection inside yourself with a higher force of energy in the universe. I am here to help you develop that chakra system that will give you a connection with higher energy in the universe. And every person is unique. There are no two people in the world that are going to have the same kind of connection. Everybody's going to have their own unique connection with higher energy in the universe. And I learned that. I said, Stuart, the guru is not, you know, Swami this one and Yogi that one and priests and rabbis and imams. And their job is to teach people how to open to the real guru, life. Life is the most extraordinary university. And it has so much to teach every single human.
I love that. The real guru is life. Thank you. And as we start to finish our time together, Stuart, I ask the guests that come on the show, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I would just tell people the only person they're up against in this world is themselves.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%. So simple, but so true. And if people want to come and find your books or come connect with you or even join your classes, where can they find you?
I teach on Zoom. I have 7 classes a week. My email address is Stuart, D as in David, Perrin at gmail.com. They get in touch with me. I can tell them exactly how they can come to my classes. I have this book that I just published.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Rudra
and
Meditation. Amazing.
this book probably goes into my meditation teachings deeper than any book I've written. And I've written a lot of books. I've written close to a dozen books, novels and short stories and spiritual books. But this book really is a different level. I had a friend of mine who was in Paris. He called me up the other day and he said, Stuart, your book is more than literature. It's a spiritual book. It really brought tears to my eyes. And I said to him, you got it. You got what I did. People can get this from Amazon. They can get it from, actually any local bookstore that uses in Australia. They have books. They use Ingram
Yeah.
as a distributor.
Yeah.
The Ingram they can order it from Ingram if they don't already stock it. So the book is readily available, and I just lowered the price on it. So it'll be a lot cheaper. And I would suggest this if they really want to find out what I do. It's in this book. It's a part memoir and it's part wisdom book. So I would suggest that. There's about 1,400 talks I've given
Just
on
just
Facebook
just
and
a couple.
YouTube. Just a couple available if people want to find out about it. I mean, what I do. I don't really advertise what I do. I never have. In fact, the only reason I've been doing these podcasts is because I just published this book and I want people to kind of find out about it. But other than that, I've never advertised. I don't even charge for what I do, Catherine. I have no,
I love
yeah.
this. I love
And
it.
I tell people, look, every month I send out a virtual begging bowl. And if people can afford whatever they send to help me pay the rent and take care of things like that, but there's no fee to come. If you don't have any money, it would not stop you from coming.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that because I've started this thing because I've had people come and just use a little bit of my service, not booking for a full on session. And it'll be like just doing things in the background. They're like, oh, let me pay you. What do you want me to pay you? And I said, actually, here's my link. You put in what you feel it's worth. And it's always more than what I would have said, which is so
Yeah.
fascinating. And it's just a different way of working, right? It's a different way. And, we've gone through the scarcity and everything. We've kind of flipped over to the other side. But it's really interesting because we never were like, we always somehow the money always showed up when you needed it. Like it was just that surrender into life and let life be the guru. But the money would just show up because it's the energy. It will be there when you need it. If you truly do believe you can have it. Yeah.
When I was a young guy living in Texas, running a meditation center there. And all the students were going to go up to New York to see Rudi. And we were going to drive up there. I had no money, not a penny. I was also running this kind of junky antique store, selling used furniture. And 7 o'clock in the morning, the day we were going to leave, I needed to get $40 to pay for gasoline. A guy comes to my store and says to me, Stuart, I know you're going away today. I really want that table. How much is it? And the table was $40. It's,
I love it. I
it's a
love
true
it.
story.
I
It's
love
a
it.
true story.
I believe you because this happens to me. So I believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Stuart. I really appreciate your time.
Well, Catherine, thank you for doing this. And it's been a joy to spend time with you and to just share my life and you sharing your life. And it's been wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stuart. And if for all our listeners, please do go check out Stuart's book if you feel pulled to. If the curiosity is there, allow it to guide you because sometimes being curious is what gets us to our next step in our journey. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, share, or subscribe. And thank you so much for listening and happy finding your way back to yourself. Hey, beautiful souls, it is Catherine Crestani here, and I wanted to have a chat with you about a really amazing cacao that I drink to help me get in ceremony, to help me ground, but also just because it tastes freaking good. So if you're curious and want to know about drinking something other than coffee or your standard tea, why not check out Creation Cacao? I love this with a bit of honey and cinnamon sprinkled in and just letting it brew and having that whole intention as you create this cup. So if you're curious, if I want to know more, check out the link in the show notes and in the bio and enjoy your cup of cacao.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.